Hello and welcome back to Toy Box Tutorials. We are back in my Dunbroch Defense toy box today, and we're looking at the economy system in Disney Infinity 3.0, which is made up of a bunch of different Creativitoys that all work together to provide a working economy. We're going to look at another Creativitoy today, but before we do, let me display my overview diagram for the economy system again, so we can see where this new toy fits in. So far we've looked at the toys that correspond to the blue boxes on the diagram. We looked at the money manager, which keeps track of the money that players have in their purse, the storefront, which lets you set up shops where players can spend the money they've earned, and the inventory manager, which keeps track of the toys that the players have purchased. Today we're actually going to look at two toys that help control how players add the toys in their inventory to the toy box. On the diagram, this corresponds to the yellow arrow on the right going up. That's where these toys fit in. One is a brand new toy that we have not looked at before, and the other is a toy that we've looked at previously, but we're going to revisit it here. Now you might be thinking, why do we need a toy to help us with this step on the diagram? Haven't we seen that the player can just open the toy box editor and use it like they normally do? Well, yes. But for my tower defense game, I want to control when the players are allowed to use the toy box editor. I do not want them to be able to add new defenses in the middle of the battle. I want to limit them so that they can only place their defenses before the next wave begins. That forces them to strategize and to plan ahead. The first toy that's going to help us do that is the Editor Manager. And before we can access that, I've loaded up the toy box, and you can see my economy system is active, so we need to come over and turn it off so that we can continue working on the toy box. And then I can open this up, and you find the Editor Manager in the Creativitoys drawer once you've purchased it from the toy store. And I'm going to place this right here. This toy was introduced in the Disney Infinity 2.0 version, and it allows you, as the toy box creator, to choose when and how your players can use the editor, and what happens when the editor is closed. So let's open up the logic menu for this toy. First thing you'll notice is there are no properties. There are some logic connections, and I'm going to come back to that in a moment. But let's look at the behaviors first. And we're going to delete this button over here. We're going to use this button to help us. We used this last time to open the storefront. I don't need to do that now, so I'm going to delete that link. So now this button is not hooked up to anything. And while we're right here, let's go ahead and take out some of these other toys that we had put down last time. We don't need them. Alright, so let's start with the with the button over here, I guess. So we'll do a new logic connection when pressed. We'll come over to our Editor Manager, open up the menu, and you'll notice there are two behaviors. The first one is Open Editor, and this forces the editor, the toy box editor, to be opened. And it's for the active player who pushes the button. The other behavior closes the editor for all the players. So these are the only two behaviors for this game. And I'm going to have my test button back there open the editor. Now on the editor, if we open up the logic menu and we go into new logic connection, there are 5 trigger signals that this editor will broadcast. The first one is Editor Forced Open, and this is only broadcast when you use the logic connection to open the editor. If you just open the toy box editor normally, this toy will not broadcast this signal. Again, this is only when you force the editor open with a logic connection. These others are all basically the same, it's just which player happens to close the editor. So on this one, for example, when player 1 closes the editor, this will broadcast this trigger signal. And if player 2 closes it, it broadcasts that one. players 3 and 4 are not used because we don't have online multiplayer anymore. So let's hook up editor forced open, for example, to our sound effect generator over here. We'll go under the general category and we'll use the buzzer sound. That's pretty easy to detect. Okay. And again, you don't have to turn this toy on or off. It just does whatever when you ask it to. So if we come out here and then we go back into the editor, there was no buzzer sound. So you can see it did not play the sound. It only broadcasts that trigger signal, as I said, when the editor is forced open. All right, so let's go ahead and push that button and do just that. So if we sneak through here, and that opens the editor for us. And it played the sound because I used the button with a logic connection to open the editor. Okay, so that's pretty straightforward. That toy lets us open the editor, and it lets us decide what happens when it's closed. But how do we prevent the user from opening the editor on their own when we do not want them to? Well, for that, we need another toy, and we've looked at this toy previously. This is the Toy Box Game Maker, and I'm going to drop this right over here. I covered this toy back in episode 82, but it's good to revisit this toy again because we didn't do much with it in that episode, and this provides another example of what you can do with that toy. To refresh your memory, one of the things this toy does, oops, I meant to go into spark mode. One of the things this toy does is it allows you to set the rules for the editor, which is exactly what I need here for my game. So I've already placed it. We'll open up the logic menu for this, go into the properties, and by default, all of these properties are turned off when this toy is activated. So all we have to do is turn on the features we want players to be able to use during the game and then activate this toy. And the toy will then prevent players from doing anything we don't want them to do. So by default, the editor mode is off, which means they will not be able to access the editor. They won't be able to use the magic wand, edit logic connections, customize toys like setting styles or themes. They won't be able to move them, delete them, or do any of that. We can allow them to use hexagonal power disks. That's fine. But everything else we're going to leave turned off. And all of these properties down here, just let them use whatever character they want to use in the game. Okay? So to hook this up, we need to turn it on. And we're going to do that from our level starter. So we're going to do a new logic connection on Catalyze. Come over to our Toy Box Game Maker and start the test mode. And again, I covered that back in episode 82. And then we're going to come to our off button and do a new logic connection when pressed and use that to turn off the test mode. Okay, and it's very important that you do that. Again, you have to be careful with this toy, just like we were with the inventory manager, because we're using the level starter to turn it on, which means we have to have a way to turn this toy off, or we will never be able to edit this toy box ever again. The next time we load up the toy box, this will turn this on, and if we have no way to turn off this toy, we're going to be locked out of the editor, and that's not good. So you need to be able to turn it on and off. So we'll use the level editor to turn it on, our off button here to turn it off. Okay? All right. So now we'll come out of the editor, and I'm going to push this button. That's going to turn on my economy system, and it's on, as you can see in the upper left corner. Mickey's got the blue glow from the team activator. And now when I try to activate the editor, it will not let me activate the editor. I cannot get into the editor. And that's perfect because I don't want the player to do that whenever they want. But I can come over here to the button, and notice now I'm in the editor. Even though the Toy Box game maker said they couldn't use the editor manager overrides that. So you can leave the Toy Box editor or the Toy Box game maker on and use the editor manager to open up the editor when you want. So the player will not be able to open this up whenever they want, only when I want them to. And that's exactly what I need for this game. So now we can close out of this. And now I cannot open up the editor again. I'm pushing the button and it will not let me into the editor. So that's perfect. The other thing I want to point out, when we open this up, I can go into Spark mode. But if I come over here to this toy, for example, notice the menu in the lower right. I cannot move this toy, so I cannot pick it up and move it. I can't delete it. I can't do anything with this toy. The Toy Box game maker is preventing us from doing anything with the toys that are here. However, I can come out here to my Asgardian spread turret, and I can drop that, which is exactly what I want to be able to do in my game. So that's perfect. And then I can exit out of the editor. Alright, so now we're able to do what we want to do. So let's go ahead and turn everything off. I am going to reset my inventory. So now that we know how to manipulate the editor, let's incorporate it into our game. At this point, we have enough of the basic building blocks for our economy system that we can start implementing the tower defense game. And what I want to do today is I want to set up a mission giver that kicks off the game, and once the player speaks to the mission giver, we'll open up the editor so that the player can place their first defense tower. So let's go ahead and take out the toys we know we don't need. We're going to take that one out. I'll leave the sound effect generator. We can use that again in the future. We'll take this button out, and we'll leave all of the others here. And for our mission giver, we're going to place them over here at the area where the player is going to be defending. And we're going to need a few toys for this. So let me go ahead and pull those up. And I need my list here. Alright, so we're going to go into the Creativa toys. And we're going to need a few things here. Let's go over to the left. We're going to need a dynamic trigger. I'm going to place these toys right about here at ground level. We're going to need a logic gate. I'll place that back here. We're going to need a text displayer. I'll place that over here. We're going to need a radar marker. And we're going to need our friendly wave generator. We're also going to need a locator. So let me go back over to the right and pick that up. We're going to place that right here. And I want to make sure the little blue dot there is facing where we are. So the little blue dot there on the front of that locator is facing that direction. Right, let's connect up our friendly wave generator to the locator. That's where we want to place our mission giver. And on the friendly wave generator, we'll go into the configure wave option, select the add new option, and we're going to use Queen Eleanor. So I'll select her to be my mission giver. And under the properties, we're going to take the generation delay to 0. Under the generated friend options, I'm going to set the behavior to stand still. Alright. For our radar marker, we're going to connect that up to our friendly wave generator as our actor. So we'll do a new actor connection. Connect that to the friendly wave generator. Under the properties for the radar marker, the beacon type I'm going to set to be a yellow exclamation point. Beacon location needs to be at the connected actor. And I want this active when we come into the toy box. Our dynamic trigger, we're going to connect that up to our friendly wave generator as our actor. So we'll do a new actor connection. Connect that to the friendly wave generator. And under the properties for the dynamic trigger, target needs to be the connected actor. And the trigger distance, I'm going to set this to be 6. And on the text displayer, go into the properties for that. I'm going to set the text duration to be 4 and the text style to be banner. All right, so I want the mission giver to be there at the start of the toy box. So we're going to come to our level starter, do a new logic connection on catalyze. We'll come over to our friendly wave generator and generate the wave. And in case we want to test this multiple times, well, let's just leave this set this way initially. I don't want to confuse the logic here. Okay, so when the player comes over here, the radar marker will be on. When they enter the area around the friendly wave generator, that's what triggers our mission giver. So on the dynamic trigger, we'll do a new logic connection when entered by player any. First thing I want to do is come over to the radar marker and turn that off. On the dynamic trigger, a new logic connection when entered by player any. We want her to tell the player what to do, so we're going to come over to the text displayer. And under the defense category, she's going to say, prepare your defenses. On the dynamic trigger, a new logic connection when entered by player any. We only want to do all of this one time, and since I cannot turn back around and connect back to the dynamic trigger, I can't connect a trigger signal from the dynamic trigger to one of its own behaviors. We have to go through a logic gate. So that's why I have this here. So we're going to do an input on the logic gate. And on the logic gate, we'll do a new logic connection on output. Come over to our dynamic trigger and turn it off. Alternatively, you could use the radar marker to do that. And this is probably better. So under the radar marker, you could do a new logic connection when this is deactivated. Turn around to the dynamic trigger and turn it off. I actually like that better, so let's delete the logic gate. So the dynamic trigger will turn off the radar marker. The radar marker in turn will turn off the dynamic trigger. So we only do this once. All right. So the idea is the mission giver tells the player what to do, and then we want to open the editor so that the player can start placing their defenses. So when the text goes away, that's when we want to do that. So on the text displayer, we're going to do a new logic connection when any text is dismissed. We're going to come over to our editor manager and open the editor. That will put the player into the toy box editor so that they can place the toys. Okay? So now let's go ahead and test that out. And before we do, this is a good time to save our game. So I'm going to come into my save menu. And I actually have two toy box saves here that I'm going back and forth between. I loaded up Dunbroch, tongue twister, Dunbroch Defense Build 2. This is the file I opened. This is the latest one. I'm going to override the older one, Dunbroch Defense Build 1. So I always, if I screw this up, I can always go back to this one. So I'm going to overwrite this one. And I'll go ahead and save. And there we go. All right, so let's go ahead and test it out. So we will turn on our economy system. This invokes the level starter. You can see in the upper left we have our money. Whoops, that something turned off. Oh, there it goes. That was kind of weird. All right, so we have our money. Mickey's outlined in blue. I am not able to open up the editor, so that's really good. And you'll notice on the radar screen in the lower left, we now have a radar marker. So let's go ahead and head on out here and talk to our mission giver. She says, prepare your defenses. So that tells the player what we're going to do. And then we automatically open up the editor. And you'll notice we have still our mounts in our gameplay toys. So we want to make sure we fix that. But at this point, we can go ahead and place our first defense tower. And you'll see it's picked up the cost from the store manager, from the shop storefront. And when we place that, then we can go ahead and exit. I'm just going to go ahead and exit. And now here we are back in the game. So that worked out great. A couple things I need to fix, though, that we had set up in previous episodes. Let's go ahead and come over here and turn off everything. We'll go back into the editor. I want to come over to my inventory manager, go into set inventory. We want to delete at this point the health capsule and the horse. All we really want the player to start with is the Asgardian spread turret. And I also need to fix the cost for that in the store. So we're going to come in here, and we do not need the black horse. We do not need the health capsule. And I want to change the price on the spread turret to 20. I actually had that there. The player is going to start with 20, and I only want them to be able to place one turret for wave 1. So they have to be creative about where they do that. And all the rest of these are fine. I just didn't set that to the right price last time. And we can also delete that logic connection so we don't have that buzzer. So on the editor manager, we'll delete that link. And I don't think we need the link for the storefront either. Let me double check that. We had it set up so when insufficient funds were detected, right? So we can go ahead and delete that link as well. But again, I'll leave this toy here because we're going to use that a little bit later. And at this point, we can go ahead and save our game again. And I would just go ahead and overwrite my same backup here, which is this one, because everything tested out fine. So that's it for the Editor Manager and how you can use it along with the Toy Box Game Maker to control when and how your players can use the editor. Next time, we'll continue building my tower defense game by adding the logic for the first wave of enemies, and we'll look at the Loot Drop Manager, which allows players to earn money from the defeated invaders. Until then, I want to thank you for watching, and I hope this tutorial was helpful for you. If so, please hit the like button and leave a comment to let me know. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel and follow me on my blog for more Disney Infinity videos and tutorials like this one. That's all for me today. Take care.